Hey guys, Kimber here, lead designer at Canva Design, and today we're going over the parts of your remodel team and the differences between the professionals you can hire, who you may need, who you don't need, and all things choosing and hiring your team. So there's a lot of confusion around who the remodel team needs to include, and the difference between the different types of professionals available and how to choose the right people to handle your renovation. So essentially, for any remodel project, no matter how large or small, you have the plans team and you have the build team. On the smallest project, say like a cosmetic DIY bathroom reno, you as a homeowner could fill both roles. You could handle the plan side and the build side. So on the plans and design side, say you'd spend, a few weeks building your inspiration board on Pinterest and, saving all of your photos on Google for exactly what you want it to look like. And then you'd, take a weekend to go take some measurements, do a napkin sketch to make sure you buy the right size fixtures, make sure you have the right shower stall, enough, flooring and tile for whatever finishes you're ordering. Then you'd spend a few weekends, working on the build side. So you'd handle the demo, installing new finishes and fixtures, painting and all the trim and finish work, all of that stuff. So, if you're not super handy, then you might hire out the trades if you didn't want to handle it all yourself. So you'd have, a plumber and electrician, maybe quartz cutting if you're doing a higher end vanity instead of something pre-made, and maybe the sink install in the new vanity countertop. So in that capacity, you're working as a general contractor. So you're still handling the whole plan side, but on the build side, you'd have, the trades that you're hiring out and you're managing them, coordinating them, making sure the work gets done. So, the plumber and electrician and all of that, but you're still managing it. So still involved on the build side. So for larger projects where you're not planning to DIY, something like a larger scale, cosmetic kitchen overhaul, then you may want to hire a GC to oversee, most of the build side. So in cases like that where, there's more moving parts, more things to coordinate, more trades happening, then you'll probably get more value out of hiring someone to budget and manage and oversee the project. So in the case of our large kitchen reno, you may have plumbing. If you're moving the sink, you have lots of flooring work, electrical work for new outlets. So you're adding adding a pantry. You may have framing work. You may have the painter and the finish people. And there's just a lot more that goes into it. And so there's a lot more value that comes from not having to oversee that larger team of subcontractors getting the job done. So in that case, you are still handling the plans and design side. You may not necessarily need somebody to do a full set of, plans for that remodel. Most of the trade permits are going to come from the trades guys. The plumbing guy will just do a quick worksheet to pull his plumbing permit over the counter. There's not really much in the way of permitting that needs to get done on something that's cosmetic like that. Even if you are moving a window or a door, a lot of times your builder can just handle whatever new header call out there needs to be. So you can still usually handle everything, just working with the builder to, figure out which cabinet supplier they use. So you can work with their rep to figure out exactly what the cabinets look like. You can choose all of your own finishes. So you're still working, covering everything on the plans and design side. And then you'll have the whole build side, hired out. So you'd have the GC, and the GC would manage all of the, the trades and subcontractors. So if your kitchen remodel was bigger than that, say you've got lots of openings moving around, you're doing an open concept to take out what may or may not be a bearing wall. If you're doing a full kitchen relocate or a full complete layout overhaul where you've got sinks moving and appliances are moving and fixtures are changing and the flow through the room is changing. In that case, then you might have some benefit from hiring someone to help and provide a little bit more support on the plans and design side. So a lot of people don't realize that you actually have a lot of options on the plans and design side on who you can hire to help get your job done, depending on the size of the job and complexity and kind of what support you need, how much you can handle yourself and want to handle yourself versus, how much your builder recommends that you hire out. So, if it's something cosmetic and small and, not so much small, but simpler where it's just choosing finishes, fixtures, lighting fixtures and plumbing and cabinet handles, that sort of thing, you can probably get by, on that, even on a large kitchen remodel, where flow is changing. You can use an interior designer. So they'll still do plans for you. They could do finished plans and help put together a set of construction documents for the builder team, to know where the new tile is going, figure out what new, backsplash design you're wanting, even for, plumbing moving around, anything like that, to support the team or the build team as they're pulling their permits and getting their trade stuff figured out. And that interior designer can handle, space planning and flow and a lot of those things at the, even a medium-sized kitchen remodel. If you do have structural work going on, then your builder is really likely going to recommend that you work with, a true building designer. And so you have multiple options even at that, at that level of support needed. So most of the time, really the big categories we see are drafters and building designers and architects. And so with drafters, they are usually, they come in different ranges of skill. So you can find anything from, someone just out of college that has, all of the technical skills needed to, put these sets together. A lot of times they've been in the field for, a few years, and so they've got a good idea on permitting. So essentially what they can do is take your idea that you've planned out, you've already designed the space, what the kitchen needs to look like. Maybe you've worked with the interior designer to figure out the flow, but if you do need building permits, that drafter a lot of times can step in and put together a set of plans that you can send through the permit office. So they're going to be, the lowest cost out of the three, designers that you can hire for your plans. They usually don't offer a lot of design input. Usually they'll just take your plans that you want to, or your sketch, napkin sketch, whatever design you've put together for your new, kitchen, bath, utility room, whatever it is. And they'll put that into a format that you can send through the permit office. So they usually know which notes are required as far as insulation goes. If you're moving a window and need an infill wall, sometimes they can provide support on the, on the code side. They'll look at zoning review. They can usually do a lot of the stuff the other designers can do on a smaller scale. So if you have more structural work doing, and maybe you're adding an addition to enlarge this kitchen, so you can do, a very large scale kitchen remodel where you're expanding it, you're, really making changes. And the more complex that project gets, you're probably going to need somebody with a little more skill, someone with more experience that's gone through, the permit process before getting this type of project done. And so in that case, you're likely going to want, either a building designer or an architect. So, the building designer tends to be one step up from the drafter. So they've been in the, market, or they've been in the industry for a few years. They've seen a lot of different projects go through the permit office. They have a ton of design skills. So whereas a drafter will just kind of, step in and draw what you've sketched out, and, make it something permittable, what the building designer will do will take your sketch and let you know how that can be improved. So, maybe they have ideas that you didn't think of for a better flow for kitchens because they've looked at, 35 kitchens. And so they know, what people like and what works and what doesn't and what builders recommend. The really good ones have a really strong structural background, so they'll know, which walls are bearing. They can tell you pretty easily what the options are for reducing the cost of your remodel. If you planned on taking out one wall that had, a load bearing post in it, maybe they can recommend ways to keep the post, incorporate it into an island. They can offer suggestions for improving the design and, possibly reducing the budget, while also putting together a fully permittable set of design plans. And they'll also coordinate with the rest of your team, work with budgeting, work with your contractor to make sure, everything looks good on the build side. And they tend to just come with a little bit higher level of skill and support than the drafters, which obviously comes with a little bit higher price tag. But you're, just like with the GC, you're paying for the service to help improve what you've sketched out, especially if it's an addition or something that you haven't really worked with before, that you're not quite sure on, design and flow, and you want to make sure that it works exactly the way you think it's going to. A lot of times also drafters work only in 2D. You may find some that work in 3D, but a lot of times it's AutoCAD. It's essentially just the 2D plans that you need to get through the permit office, With the building designers, since they are focusing on helping you more on the design side, a lot of them will offer 3D renderings, so you can actually see what the new kitchen addition looks like once you take walls down and start opening it up. So you can get a better sense along the way that you're making the right design decisions, and that it's all going to really end up the way you're envisioning for with the 3D renderings. So building designers tend to be all you really need on most, even large scale remodel projects. And most jurisdictions that we see typically don't require the architect's license on anything less than 4,000 square feet or anything less than 20 feet tall. Tends to be kind of the typical cutoff. So most even 2-story large scale additions or second floor additions are going to fall well within the requirements for not requiring a true designer's, architect stamp or architect license. So the architect is also available. A lot of times we see them focusing on large scale custom home builds, new construction. There are architects out there that handle remodel projects. They tend to come with the highest price tag. They've spent years and years in the field. They have a ton of experience. They're usually one step up from the building designer, which essentially performs the same function just without the license. So the architects here, and you're paying for that license and that long range of skill and experience that they have in the field. A lot of times also architects provide a higher level of service, where a building designer is going to focus on figuring out what the best flow is, what the best design is in order to get you through permits. Like us in particular, our permit sets are not 100% totally complete construction sets for the builder, and we do that on purpose. It's over the years we've had requests from builders that essentially they just want a set of plans that they can get through the permit office. They don't need every single detail. They'll work it out in the field with the homeowners, especially on like very, very detailed cabinet design or really, really detailed, soffit design, just like those levels of really intense detail. They don't necessarily need. Most builders have been doing this for a decade. Their team knows exactly how they're going to build, this thing out. They just need something that they can send to the office and get approval to start. So that's what we've tailored our permit sets around. It's just what you need to get through the process and get into construction, so you can work through a lot of those questions with the builder. What an architect does typically is they will carry you through a much higher degree of detail in the plan sets. So they're going to essentially hold your hand through the entire thing. So every question, they'll figure out exactly how to design that soffit so it looks perfect with the design for the rest of the house. Occasionally they'll figure out exactly what window types you want, whether it's a slider or a single hung versus an awning or a casement. They'll ask you all of those questions rather than let you work through it with the builder. Or if the builder gets a deal on a certain set of windows, they'll recommend this certain type because it matches the rest of the house and that sort of thing. So they'll make sure that your design is really, really, really well thought out and really detailed and really precisely perfect for you, which works really well, especially on higher end remodel projects and especially a lot of new construction. It eliminates a lot of those questions during construction. So if everything's thought out ahead of time, the builder will just build it exactly like it is on the plans. They don't have to think about it. Their team can just come in and do the work. It does come, again, with a much higher price tag. There's a lot more time involved from the designer on reaching that level of kind of completion and detail on the drawings. So you're paying a higher fee. It also can take a lot longer. That's a lot of decisions to make. Some, the really good ones will guide you through the process really, really intently. And, every single week you'll have updates. If they have a lot of other projects going, or if you aren't an active participant in it, pushing to keep things moving forward. We've seen, even remodel sets. We've seen plans from architects that can take months and months and months and even years to complete, just because, that's the level of detail that they're working through. And if, you're not actively pushing to keep things moving forward, you can stretch weeks in between it, as they're waiting for feedback or, as they're working through behind the scenes, some of those behind the scenes details. So that's, essentially most projects are going to have one of those three types of designers on them, the drafter, the building designer, or the architect. The interior designer may be the only designer you need on smaller projects, or on, medium to large projects, they may be an additional player. So if you've got, a drafter or a designer putting full plans on paper, then, especially if you don't choose an architect to work on your project, you may also want to work with an interior designer to come up with some of those details that the rest of your plans team isn't putting together for you, like choosing out the tile and figuring out exactly which flooring you want to use in the addition, that sort of thing. So that may be an additional, person you want to add to the team. And also on medium and large projects, you may need to work with an engineer, a structural engineer. So many, some drafters can do really, really minor, framing or headers, that sort of thing, if it's straight out of the code book. Some building designers can handle a lot of that structural work in-house. For example, I handle a lot of, small addition or even medium-sized addition framing and foundation plans. As long as it fits in, the code book's definition for your jurisdiction of, what this addition needs to look like. It's usually, pretty clearly laid out for simpler additions and, kind of large scale remodels, especially interior remodels, then we can handle that all ourselves. If you do have a project that kind of steps outside the boundaries of what that code book allows, like if you have openings in a bearing wall that are more than 8 or 10 feet wide, so you're taking out a full, 30 feet of your exterior wall to add on a huge addition for, a dining room and a kitchen. Anything long span like that, or just anything kind of more complicated that doesn't quite fit in the parameters we're allowed to work within, then the city or the county or jurisdiction will usually require an engineer to put up plans and calculations and details for the actual structural engineering of what it's going to look like. So that may be an additional service that you'll need on your projects. And your designer will usually be able to explain when we're crossing over the line into, something that's going to require an engineer, or if it's something they can handle themselves. But the engineer is another part of the team. Especially we handle a lot of medium to large additions and remodels. So we'll often have an engineer. So again, your designer will be able to tell you if what you're planning looks like it may need engineering, or if it's something that, they think they can handle. So, depending on your remodel, the complexity, and, kind of what scale you're going for, whether it's, the high end, media room design, or if you're doing a full home remodel with a lot of different, really intense detailing needed, where you don't need an architect. There are other professionals that you can hire to be a part of that plans and design team. So we already mentioned the interior designer, but there are also other kind of specialty professionals. So you've got, landscape architects. Maybe you want, a really cool outdoor area, and whoever's doing the permit plans doesn't do landscaping. So that landscape designer can help you figure out, smaller structures like pergolas. If your designer's not helping with that, they can help you figure out, pool design. And that may be something that you want more support with, rather than just working directly with the manufacturer, say. So, maybe you need one of those. We've got low voltage lighting specialists, media room sound professionals. If you're designing a new media room, like they're just, so a lot of different, depending on anything a little more complex that isn't particularly, related to building code, related to building code that your designer wants to handle, there are probably professionals available that can help you work through some of those details. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Essentially, for any project, no matter how big or small, you'll have a plans team and a build team. In general, the larger, more complex the project is, the more players you're likely going to need to get the job done. Most projects we see, if it's kind of smaller scale, mostly interior, not a lot of framing, not a lot of trades involved, then you probably just need, a drafter, and you can GC it yourself, working with a team of, subcontractors. Anything, a little bit larger, more complex than that, especially, the medium to large scale remodels, anything with framing or structural, or anything where flow is particularly important, or if you're doing an open concept and really want to make sure that, everything works well together, and then, whatever you're planning works really well with the existing house and looks like it's always meant to be there. Anything where, that higher degree of attention is needed. For most of those projects, we typically see a building designer, an engineer if needed, and then a GC to handle the trades. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, reach out to us. hello@candidhomedesign.com. We're super happy to answer any questions. If anything wasn't clear, if you want to know if your project you're thinking about, what people might be needed on that team, we're happy to help. And we can also reach out on candidhomedesign.com, reach out send an inquiry, and we can schedule a consultation and talk about what you're thinking, and kind of talk you through what it might look like for you in your particular situation. So again, I'm Kimber at Candid Design, and I'll see you next time.